Hello and welcome to the Revenge of the Drive-In commentary track for Fear Street Part 1, 1994. This is a frustrating title. I feel like Fear Street Part 1 is fine. Fear Street Part 1, 1994 is weird, especially when, you type it out and then you put the year in which the movie came out in parentheses. So it's Fear Street Part 1, 1994, 2021. Very confusing.
What's your name? Maya Hawke, is that it?
Yeah.
We have our Maya Hawke cameo. I don't know if they put her in here because of Stranger Things, or...
for fucking sure. And I think she's reasonably talented. She's attractive. Like, I would like to see more of her in stuff that isn't Stranger Things, but she's 100% in there, because I feel like, in general, Fear Street seems like it's playing off of Stranger Things to a certain extent. Even the nostalgia angle, they're just choosing a different decade.
Yeah.
Here, which is weird because Fear Street Part 1 is 1994. Fear Street Part 2 is 1978.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like they did everything 80s adjacent without doing 80s, and just because Stranger Things has the 80s. But
yeah.
I don't know how fair that is, because these are all R.L. Stine books, or at least inspired by R.L. Stine books.
Going back to what you were saying about basing this in the 90s, yeah, you're right. Like, it feels so Stranger Things 80s, but that also might be because that's just like the popular thing. You know what I mean? And it's also like 94 is probably older, or is a year that a lot of people watching this movie were not alive for.
It's the year you were born, right?
Yeah, it's the year I was born. Yeah, but like most people watching this movie on Netflix probably were not born before 94, or in 94. And like, oh wow, it's the 90s kids.
Yeah, I don't know. It also feels like, okay, we want to do like a slasher thing. Slashers were big in the 80s. But hey, they were also big in the 90s because of Scream. And so even though 94 is before Scream, there's like a little bit of, like, they pretty much imitated a famous shot from Scream right there. So, like, I don't know. It's not the most original movie in the world. I don't know if we have R.L. Stine to blame for that. Probably not. Because
probably not.
Like we were saying, I don't think this is very faithful adaptation. I don't know if any of these like characters are characters he created. They might have just kind of taken the title. Also, so the Fear Street, it's a trilogy. We mentioned the second one is 78, which is basically, that's your Friday the 13th setting. It's at a camp, and it's 78, I guess, just because if it's a few years later, it's too much like Friday the 13th, maybe. I don't know.
I guess.
And then the third one is what, 16 something?
1666.
Okay, so the year before Paradise Lost was published, and the year of the Great Fire of London.
Was that also...
And for some reason, this takes place in Ohio.
Yeah.
There were not settlers in Ohio in 1666, like factually. They just weren't there.
I'm looking up when the Salem witch trials were, between 1692 and 1693. So I guess they just chose 1666 because it's 666. And if they had set it in the year 666, it would have been a very different movie without witches.
Well, it couldn't have been in America. I mean, the 1666. It really. Here's the thing, and maybe this is an R.L. Stine thing. I don't know. Shadyside, which is the name of the town. Maybe R.L. Stine, that is a town in R.L. Stine, and it's in Ohio. Mm-hmm. But just have this set in Massachusetts. It makes exactly. It makes that third movie make so much more sense. But I like how even the movie, even the filmmakers gave up on the 17th century setting, because halfway through the third movie, it just becomes a sequel to this movie. Yeah. It just goes back to 1994. They just completely gave up, which I was actually grateful for, because I do think the 1994 stuff is the strongest. I think a lot of people seem to think the second movie in this series is the best. I actually found that the most dull.
Now, do you think if Netflix does go under... Well, I was going to say it'd be kind of neat to have like a Netflix movie theater, but that would make it even more difficult to watch movies. So never mind. Or like, do you think they'll sell Netflix only content to some theaters?
It's possible, but I think there would have to be a library somewhere. You would have to either physically release discs or put it on a different streaming service, I think. Now, some of the least popular Netflix stuff, maybe that just completely bites the dust. Maybe no one ever sees Tall Girl 2, after Netflix goes under. Maybe that just ceases to exist. But something like Stranger Things would get DVDs and Blu-rays and all that stuff for sure. Orange is the New Black. Fear Street would probably be among the popular things. The Gray Man, which is another example of Netflix spending way too much fucking money because they don't know what they're doing. Because they got Ryan Gosling, Ana de Armas, and I want to say Chris Evans all in that movie, and I don't think I've heard anyone talk about it. And it's like a released to Netflix big blockbuster action movie that I don't think people have seen.